Welcome to another episode of Jamming with Jason. Hey, today I'm speaking with my friend Ewelina, and we're going to talk. Who knows what we're going to talk about, right? That's what always happens on these podcasts. But she's a hypnotherapist, so I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that. But she has a very interesting story, too. So whatever you do, take a listen to this entire episode because you're going to hear something in the episode today that is exactly what you need to hear today. So with that, let's roll the episode. All right, Ewelina, it is nice to have you here with me today. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great, and thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Well, I hope you say that at the end too.
I'm sure I will.
Now, because I'm all about, trying to have some fun and trying to be authentic. So I'm going to try to pronounce your last name correctly, and I'm probably going to butcher it. So we're going to get to have a little joke about it. But I think it'll kind of tie in too to the story, your story as well, right? So
yeah.
See if I can say it right this time again. Szczeblewska. No, I did it again.
And you did it so well before.
I did it so well before. Szczeblewska.
Almost. Szczeblewska.
Szczeblewska. Okay.
Yay, well done.
There we go. No, that was better. All right. Whew. Now, so maybe let's just start because I know, as you talk, people are gonna pick up a little bit. So where did you grow up? Where do you live now? Because I think this is kind of important to the story too, as far as who you are and how you've kind of journeyed in your life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does because it really impacted who I am as a person. I'm Polish, as you can hear probably in my accent. However, you can probably also hear some Scottish in my accent too, because I live in Scotland for the last 17 years, which is a while. It's almost half of my life.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe not quite, but close.
Yeah, I know. The older we get, 20 years doesn't seem like very much, does it?
No, absolutely not. So I'm going to kind of reveal my age here a bit. So I came here when I was 21. I've been here for about 17. So it's kind of half and half. And so I'm a person of two halves, if I can say this, because I am very much Polish at my heart. Mm-hmm. Really feel a strong connection to that part of me. However, I do also feel that my sound a bit cliche, a citizen of the world. Because I love traveling. I absolutely love exploring the world. And it was one of the reasons why I left, because I was eager to go and see the world. And growing up in a Poland, very much a communist and post-communist country, we were very restricted to where we can go and what we can do. And I guess that's the rebellious side of me, was like, okay, when can I go and what can I see? And I did it. Eventually I did leave. Which was a huge step to a young person to see a completely different world to the one I grew up with.
Yeah, no, well, because, again, as we're talking here, because we'll tie in, a little bit from my background too, right? Is that, so you grew up in Poland under the communist regime.
Oh, yeah.
You saw everything, kind of come apart, if you will,
mm-hmm.
and then immigrated to Scotland, right? So you've seen some very interesting things, similar. I lived in Germany for a little while, and it was the first time I went to Germany, it was when the wall was still up. It was 89, just before the wall came down there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to know a lot of people that grew up in the eastern side of Germany and kind of hear what their childhood was like versus, and you kind of experienced, it sounds like a very, very similar kind of thing in your life as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, I'm Soviet Union, we were part of the Soviet Union until 1989. So my childhood is very different to my peers from Scotland, from UK, from the Western world, really, which is kind of amazing. I quite often relate deeply with people who are twice my age. but maybe come from here because their childhood resembled more to what I've experienced.
Okay, yeah.
Than people my age.
Yeah, because they were living through the Second World War and a
Yeah.
lot of the clampdowns and the other stuff that was kind of going on there in the UK at that time. Interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, I grew up when we've had rations, I would say this, you know, we had cards for chocolate and, you know, and as a little girl, I remember all this. But if you speak to someone my age here, it's like, I don't know what you talk about, like, you know, and I can see why, because as we changed, everything was in shops. Where before nothing was in shops. Yet there was like, you know, a massive shift. So maybe there was everything in shops, but people had no money to buy this. You cannot change or go through such a deep change without problems. You know, going from communism to democracy, you're gonna have cracks, you're gonna have problems.
Well, and you've got, because this is where I want to kind of ask you a few questions about this too, because it's, so my mother-in-law grew up in England, you know, at the time of the war. And so there's a few things like that. Like she has this thing about food, right? And I mean, it's July and she's worried about what we're going to be having for Christmas dinner, right?
Yeah.
Or the first thing, you know, when she comes over, she's like, so what are we having for dinner? And it's like, I don't know. It's like 6 hours from now, we'll decide then, right?
Yeah.
But you know, when we understand more about her childhood, which it sounds like was kind of similar to yours, right? She grew up on rations. They grew up, you know, not having much food during the war. And so as a little girl, a lot of those things kind of got programmed into her.
Yeah.
That now it doesn't really matter, right? But it still kind of becomes a part of who she was. And so again, I'm guessing for you, you know, kind of going from communist Poland to not communist Poland was probably a change. But then going to Scotland, you know, there's still this part of you that remembers, right?
Oh, absolutely. It was a massive cultural shock when I came here because I grew up with limited food. Yes, we had a plot of land, which was a savior because my mom always made jars of food. So basically the summer was like, right, okay, what we're going to eat over the winter. So we had a plot of land and my mom always made lots of food so we can, you know, have food over the winter. So for me, program is like you have to be careful with your food, how you eat. You know, we were not allowed to leave food on a plate and stuff like this. It was, you know, managing carefully, you know, how you. So, you know, I was programmed to perceive food and the world in a certain way because this was my reality. So when I came to Scotland, it was a big cultural shock because I left with a family because I came here as au pair initially.
Okay.
And the fridge was full of food and most of that always ended up in a bin. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why do they do this? Because, you know, coming from where food is scarce and you have to be careful how you go about it to a household where they couldn't care less, or it seemed to me like that, you know, at the time. Different realities. They grew up in a different realities to mine. They didn't see the world the way I did because they grew up somewhere else. So my perception of the world was very different.
Well, and really, I mean, it's that way for all of us, I think, right? Because like you said, I mean, I love that idea of kind of a citizen of the world. I would love to turn in my US passport and just have like an international passport if I was allowed to do that, but you can't, right?
I know, that would be awesome.
It'd be amazing, right? But you know, we all come from different backgrounds. And I heard you use a word that I want to talk a little bit more about because this is going to tie into some of the hypnotherapy stuff to talk about is that you use the word programmed, right? Is that, you know, it sounds like as we're growing up, as we go through and have some of these different experiences, we're programmed to believe certain things, right? Just like you said, you grew up in Poland. Food was scarce.
Yep.
So you grew up with certain beliefs, or were programmed to have certain beliefs, that when you got to Scotland, it's like, it's totally different, right? Full refrigerator, they're throwing out the food all the time, and you're like, what? They're starving people in Poland, right? Parents always used to say starving people in China, right? Eat your dinner. But that kind of an idea, right? And so how does that, I know for you probably had to make some changes in yourself to go from how you were programmed as a child to how you're living today, right? Because you can't live in Scotland with all the same beliefs and acting the same way as you did when you were a child in Poland, right?
Yeah, and it was a difficult period because back then I didn't understand any of it. I didn't know anything about mind, how we learn, the way we perceive the world and our beliefs, how we go about to have certain beliefs, why I see the world this way. Or let's say I've got two younger brothers and they are very different to me. They don't necessarily hold the same beliefs about the world. And to give you the example, my younger brother came to Scotland when he was 12. I was 21. Again, he's a very different person than I am, because his reality growing up in Poland was very different to mine, because he was born in 93. Poland was free, democracy, food on shelves, no problems, government doesn't really restrict your movements. You can do whatever you want. I grew up in a different reality. So again, we coming from the same household, we are very different people. He feels very Scottish, very Western child. He doesn't feel Polish at all, because he grew up here pretty much. That difficult age, 11, 12, when you reshape yourself as a person. He was here in Scotland. So when I came, my world got turned upside down, because the way I was treated, the way people were behaving here, everyone says sorry every other day, every other word. I apologize, I'm sorry. And I'm like, why you keep saying sorry? It's like, you don't do anything. Why you keep apologizing to me? And it took a while for me to get used to this, to see the world through the prism of living in a different world. And I remember when I maybe went to Poland a few years later, maybe visit my mom or something, and the differences between the two countries were so massive, because the fact that no one really said sorry in a shop, or like no one, like that, cultural way of, if you've been to England before, so everyone's like, oh, I'm sorry, I bumped into you. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't give you the right. Everyone is keep apologizing, and no one really does that in Poland. So living here for a few years, and then I visited Poland, suddenly I was like, oh no, why no one says, no one apologizes, they don't say I'm sorry. That the cultural shift was very visible to me, because I was a few years here, not really living there anymore. I was getting used to the reality here, and then I go on holiday and it's like, whoa.
Well, and that's interesting, because it brings up, so much of the time it's, there's an old Native American saying that kind of goes, you never know someone else until you walk a day in their moccasins, right? That, it's how much of the time in the world are people saying, how can you not say you're sorry? Oh my gosh, you're so rude, or whatever it is, right? We make all these interpretations about how somebody acts, or what they do, or what they believe, without really understanding who they are as a person, and maybe why they feel that way.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you having that experience, that's why I love traveling too, because it gives us a feeling of how others in the world perceive the world, or why they do things the way that they do.
100%. But that's why I love traveling, because you get to see the perspective of the world from a different angle. And just because it's different, it doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just different.
Yep.
And as you say, you need to walk in someone else's shoes for a day to know really why they are the way they are. Now it doesn't really bother me in any shape or form because I know so much about the mind. Being a hypnotherapist, I understand the mind. But back then, it was very visible to me. Still being quite a young person, I had that internal battle in myself, living between two different worlds. I didn't really fully understand why that is this way. There was all those questions that I had in my head. I had a lot of internal battles in myself. I wasn't happy with my life, yet I didn't do anything about changing this because I didn't understand, why I created my life the way I did. Now I know.
Well, and maybe let's talk about that a little bit, because this might help kind of, I know you've kind of come on a journey. I mean, like you said, when you first went to Scotland, you were an au pair, right? So that was one kind of job. I'm sure you had other different jobs in between, and now ended up becoming a hypnotherapist. So we'll get in and kind of talk a little bit about that. But I think what's interesting is what you just kind of said there, that I'm sure a lot of people listening can feel this way, because I feel this way. And you just said you felt this way, where, sometimes we kind of wake up and we want our life to be different, but we just can't figure out why, right? We're not happy, but we can't figure out what it is that we have to do different to make our life better, or to be different. So maybe let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm sure, again, you have a lot of people that come to you in that same situation, right? I mean, how do we deal with that?
Yeah, so if I relate it back to my story, so I quite quickly got into a relationship when I came here, not realizing that I recreated my childhood environment in this relationship. So I got into a relationship with someone who had struggled with expressing emotions, and so did I. I'm as guilty as charged here. But basically, I recreated the relationship that I had with my mom at the time, very unhealthy on an emotional level, because my mom didn't express emotions, and now she can see this. But back then she didn't know, and I didn't know that I recreated exactly my childhood in my adulthood relationships, because that's how the mind works. We go for what we know, what's familiar to us and known to us, and that's why I did. And a few years in, I was like, well, I'm unhappy, but why am I unhappy? It's like, there's nothing wrong with my relationship. He's okay, I'm okay, we've got good jobs, everything seems hunky-dory on the surface. Yet I'm not really satisfied with myself and with my life. And I wanted to go traveling. He didn't want to do so. I did. I went to university because I really needed to do something with myself. I was like, I was not happy, but I didn't know what, how to tackle this, how to, bite into as well. What I mean? It's like you said, you notice something is not working, but I couldn't pinpoint what. And I needed to do something. So I went to uni. I finished university, which I always wanted to do. So I did. And again, still wasn't that wasn't still kind of fixing what I wanted to fix. The relationship fell apart in the end. I struggled with depression after that a bit, because on one swoop, I've lost everything. I've lost my relationship, a lovely environment I lived in. I've lost my job. My whole world got turned upside down. But it was good, now I can see this was for the better. At the time I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But now I know it was for the better. And I got a very good job after that. And it seems I was like, yeah, I'm fixed, no more depression. I feel amazing, cloud 7, everything is good. And out of the blue, I kind of got a depressive spell again. And I was like, whoa, okay, what's going on in here? There's no reason, utterly no reason to feel like this. So I thought anyway, I've got a good job, I've got the money, I've got a lovely house. What is going on here? And I started to look into it, because it was very uncomfortable to me, where on a surface, My life looked fine. Absolutely nothing to worry about. Yet inside, I was screaming in pain. And I didn't know how to tackle it. And other side to it as well, I was being single, trying to date, and that didn't go anywhere. And after a while, I was like, the common denominator is here in the mirror. I'm looking at it.
That's a hard discussion to have, though, isn't it?
It is. It took me a while to get to this point, to get like, okay, this is something going on wrong here, and the common denominator is me. But that really, it's almost like I needed to hit the rock bottom to kind of like, okay, I need to have a really long, hard look at myself here, because I'm the common denominator here. And that's how I started to look into things out there. What can I do? Why do I feel like this? What is out there for me to try? Maybe coaching, maybe some courses. And I started reading self-help books. Nothing was really satisfying me. Like nothing was really, like I edged a little bit. I felt like I cracked the door open and they didn't go any further than that. So I saw a bit of light. But like, okay, but that didn't solve the issue. So I kept searching and kept looking. And eventually I landed on Marissa Peer, and she teaches hypnotherapy, and I went to see her in London, and I was like, oh, this sounds like the thing I need. Because she explained exactly why we struggle so much, because we learn who we are, our beliefs, patterns, we create certain associations from basically the day we are being born. So I created certain associations with, let's say, my mom. My mom was emotionally unavailable to me. So for me, I learned that a loving, so to speak, healthy relationships is with someone who doesn't show you love and affection and emotion. Because when I created that belief, I was a little girl who didn't understand this is not the right pattern, this is not the right belief. But this was my belief, and that's what I created in my adulthood relationship. But I didn't know that's what I did. So something was missing, something was not right, because inside I was literally screaming in pain, like I need the love and affection from myself, as well as my ex-partner, because I wasn't in a loving relationship with myself. And that's by far the most important relationship we need to foster. And I was failing myself. I wasn't treating myself right. I wasn't looking after my mental health. And the kind of, I was always fit and active, so that wasn't the problem. But on emotional level, I was failing myself, and I didn't know that's what I'm doing. So I didn't have a healthy relationship with myself, so I couldn't create a healthy relationship with another person. Because if you've got a broken person, you're going to attract the broken person.
Yep. And that's why people keep going so much of the time from relationship to relationship to relationship, right? Because they think the other person is going to fix themselves, but until we fix ourselves, right,
Absolutely.
We're just going to keep attracting broken people.
Absolutely. And I guess I'm someone who's always been very eager to learn, to explore, someone who doesn't accept status quo. And I think that's really helped me, because I was like, okay, this is enough. Enough is enough. Being in the early 30s, I was like, I've got a whole lifetime or two ahead of me. I need to get to the bottom of this. I can't live like this. This is not a way to live. And that's what really helped me to keep going, to keep searching, to keep looking for solution, because I wasn't satisfied with what I was getting from life, because I was like, must be more. Surely I'm not just here to, get up, go to work, go home and go to bed. Like, surely there's more. And there is, as you know, life is beautiful if we choose to make it beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And so, again, you said you kind of found this person in London, and hypnotherapy kind of resonated with you, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, because again, like you said, you'd been programmed, right? We'll use that word again, right? Is it your experiences over time, it kind of programmed you to believe certain things,
Mhm.
to do certain things the way you do it, right? So what was it about hypnotherapy that really kind of resonated with you, and how did it help you get past that pain that you were actually feeling?
So what's so beautiful about hypnotherapy is that we work with the problem at the core level. So basically, we're getting to the source of the problem. We're not dealing just with the superficial issue, because quite often what presents itself as the problem is not necessarily the problem, it's a coping mechanism that we developed. So my coping mechanism was, I decided not to open up to people. I created a wall. No one really could get into me, because that meant to open up, to be vulnerable, to be seen. And that means open to love, which that something was never shown to me in any shape or form, because my mom didn't do it. My dad was never around. My granny, the person that really was the only person that I perceived and interpreted as a person that loved me, died when I was 8. And it's only till I started digging in my mind that I realized the her death really impacted me deeply. I have never associated that with much pain. Again, because I put up the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I never allowed that pain to enter me. So I created this wall. So my problem that I was facing was, I can't foster connections. No one really liked me. Why? Because I created a wall. I never allowed anyone in. But the real problem was I had a wrong belief. My belief, a healthy relationship is with someone who doesn't show love of affection. And that created a struggle inside of me, because on a soul level, on a deeper level, I understood this is not right. But consciously, I didn't have that awareness. So what hypnosis allows is going into that deeper level where the problem was created, because then we can realize, okay, so the problem is X, Y, and Z. You created this belief based upon what happened to you. Something happened. Your mind created certain association, created certain patterns. Okay, we need to untangle this with our adult critical logical mind from a point where we are now. And then we can, okay, what beliefs do serve us? Okay, the correct belief, if I can say this, is healthy relationship with someone who's dealt with the troubles, with the trauma, it's able to be vulnerable and open up, and able to foster healthy connection, not with someone who withholds emotions. Mm-hmm. So hypnosis allows to get into that deeper layer, that deeper level of the mind, where all the problems are created, stored, and are ruling our lives from the shadows. And for the most part, we don't even know. They are there directing our urges, our decisions, because we think we consciously made a decision. No, we haven't. Because before we even get to think, okay, I need to make a decision, your mind already went past through, okay, X, Y, and Z happened to you in the past, and you reacted this way, and you created that belief and that pattern. That means we need to follow this, and this is the decision you're going to make. So before you even consciously thought about it, all that already happened in the back of your mind. And then you think, oh yeah, I've made the decision consciously. No, you haven't.
Well, that's why, yeah, because there's a lot of studies. I mean, you and I both know this, right? That 95% of all decisions we make are subconscious.
Yeah.
So we think we're making these decisions consciously, but we're not. It's all our subconscious. So I want to kind of put an analogy out there to kind of summarize a little bit of what you've been talking about, to make sure that everybody that's listening kind of understands this, right? But as we've been talking about, as we grow up, as we have experiences in our life, it's like we're a computer program, right? And so all of these different experiences, things that we have, relationships with certain people, everything that we have is like there's a little, computer coder in our
Yeah.
brain that's coding these things into us, right? So that we know, hey, next time I get into a relationship, I want to find somebody that's emotionally unavailable, because that's what I believe, right, is
Yeah.
what a loving relationship means based on how I've been programmed. And so, the problem is, again, we've got years and years and years of this code being written in our subconscious.
Mhm.
And that's why so much of the time, like you said, consciously you were like, I don't want this, but I can't
Mhm.
figure out why, because it's recorded in the subconscious. Your conscious isn't going to know that. But, even if we consciously realize, hold it, I've got some bad programming that I need to redo, until we actually reprogram that line of code,
Yeah.
it stays there, right?
Mhm.
So we can
Yeah.
consciously, all we want to say, no, damn it, I know that I'm emotionally unavailable because my mother or whoever, helped me to learn that. So I'm going to think about it hard enough. And next time I'm just not going to do it that way. That doesn't work though, does it?
Doesn't work that way. That's I think that's the problem. It doesn't work that way because as long as we are aware and conscious, you probably can hold to your decision to a point. But we can't stay conscious and aware all the time because we would be exhausted by 9 o'clock in the morning. We have subconscious mind for a reason. It helps us to preserve energy. So we don't have to consciously think about everything that we need to know and remember. Because if you want to think like, oh, I'm not programmed, I know what I'm doing. So think about it. If you get up in the morning, you don't think it's like, I need to get up and I always get up on the left and I put my right foot on the floor and then a left. And then, okay, what's next? And the left. All right, okay, next, or cup of tea. You just do it automatically. It just happens. You don't think about it. You just follow your urges or that instinct. And that's your subconscious programming. You've programmed yourself that this is your morning routine. And you repeat it over and over every day. And the more you repeat, the more ingrained the pattern becomes. So subconscious is very much needed. It helps us to store very important information, helps us to preserve energy. As we go through the day, we get tired because we use mental capacity to think about things, we do things. So it's needed and it's helpful as long as the programming in a subconscious mind serves us. So the code, it's like you operate on what's now, Windows 10, 11, I don't know.
I don't know. I use Mac, so I don't know.
Well, let's say Windows 11, yet you still operate on a Windows 5, Yet we expect the performance of Windows 11.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I love hypnotherapy in general. I mean, I do at least one self-hypnosis audio a day.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me, right? Because I've found a lot of the power of it because, again, to me, it feels like what you're able to do is go back and rewrite that code.
Yeah.
Right. So you're reprogramming yourself, you're changing your beliefs and your identity so that in the future, right, when those things happen again, you're going to decide, respond in a different way than how you'd been programmed, for the previous part of your life. So
absolutely.
I'm guessing that that's then probably how you kind of worked through some of these things. I know you mentioned relationship a couple times. So maybe just kind of walk through and explain to people, because I know to some people hypnotherapy is like new, they've never heard of it, or there's a lot of times people are like, isn't that the thing that they do at the county fair where they make me quack like a chicken, and I don't want to do that. So maybe just kind of help, because you're a practitioner in this. I mean, you help people all the time. What is it really doing, and kind of what does it look like?
So there's various ways that we can explain this. One way to explain this is a narrow focus of attention. You get that focus while maybe you meditate, Maybe you're watching a sunset at night and you're just so absorbed in that view. Maybe you watch a film at night and you're like, oh my God, this is so interesting. And you really not paying attention to anything away from this. And that's kind of this hypnosis. It's a narrow focus of attention, because when your mind is relaxed, it's more open to suggestions. And people wrongly believe that they never experienced hypnosis before, which is not true, because for the most part, all of us experience hypnosis every single day. Because if you watch film at night, if you are very interested in what you're watching, it's a form of hypnosis, especially if you're tired and your mind naturally slows down the processing. It's like a form of hypnosis. When you constantly watch something, so it's a repeat to you, it's on a repeat again, because that's your recording, or a hypnotic recording when we relaxed. And it's important to remember when we are relaxed, because the mind is more open, so the stress response doesn't operate and the mind is more open, and your brain waves are slower than your normal conscious mind as we're speaking right now. So that's, I would say, is probably the easiest way for someone who never had any understanding of hypnosis, what that is. It's just a narrow focus of attention. So sometimes people can be hypnotized as well, let's say, if they were in a car accident, because maybe you were driving along and you're thinking, oh my God, I've got this debt to pay and that, receipt to pay, and oh my God, they're knocking at the door from the bank, and then boom, you crashed. And in that instant moment, you forgot all about your debt, all your focus and attention went on like, okay, I'm in a car accident. And then your mind was so narrow focused on what was happening in this particular moment in a second, and created association as, okay, car accident, we don't like this, I'm unhappy, I'm anxious. And next time you're driving in a car accident, let's say, and you see a car maybe speeding up behind you a bit too fast because maybe someone drove into you, your body automatically gone to this like, oh my God, because your mind goes like, this is danger. Car speeding up too fast means car accident. So that's other explanation as well. And that opens the door to the subconscious mind. So we are being exposed to hypnosis pretty much every day, one way or the other. We just don't know that's what it is.
Yeah, and I like the way you describe that, because I don't know how many people I've talked to and they're like, well, I don't want to be hypnotized. And I'm like, do you not realize you're hypnotizing yourself all day, every day?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I mean, when we have that narrow focus of attention, we're absorbed in watching a movie, we're absorbed in listening to music, or even like you said, sometimes when we're driving, sometimes you'll get in the car, you start driving to wherever you're going, and all of a sudden you're there and you don't even remember how you got there.
Absolutely.
Right. That those kind of things happen. So we're already going into that kind of state anyway during the day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's nothing to be afraid of from that, because we do it all the time anyway. Right.
Yeah.
But like you said, once we get to that state, it sounds like that's the opportunity then for us to be able to reprogram. So let's take your car example again, right? Just make sure I'm understanding this right.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody has been in a car accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they were in a car accident is going to program certain things in their subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
So when they suspect danger, all of a sudden they're afraid that any danger they see on the road, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in a car accident, right?
Yeah.
And so that anxiety, that fear,
Mm-hmm.
everything can well up in them, right? And
Absolutely.
so again, it may not be a car accident, but all of us feel this. There's different things
Mm-hmm.
that trigger us, that raise that anxiety and fear into us.
And it's a protective mechanism. It's there
Yeah.
to protect us, so we don't put ourselves in the same position where we got hurt before.
Right. But I guess with that, then the question kind of is, when people are feeling certain anxiety or fears welling up over and over again that they don't want to experience,
Mhm.
this is one of those areas where hypnosis can really help, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Because for the most part, most of the fears we get into are not really fears that impose any danger to us. Fear of judgment, fear of being visible. All those fears are not really fears that are going to cause any damage to us. Yet those fears really hold us back. And it's a evolutionary process, because it was back when we left in caves, so to speak, or in tribes. That response was very much needed, because once we created that pattern, knowing, okay, I've left the village and there's a tiger there, so that means if I leave at night, there's a high chances that he's going to eat me for dinner. So now I've got this pattern. Okay, dark night outside the village, no good, we're not going there. But now we're not living in those circumstances. You can go out and at night, no one is going to do anything to you, but those fears like being visible or being socially anxious, people around you, you've got a social anxiety, we are afraid, what really would happen there, even if someone doesn't like you? What is the worst that is going to happen to you? Well, they're not going to like you, so what? But the fear is real to us when we feel it, when we've got that anxious response, that stressful response. There's a whole cocktail of emotions going through our body, and it feels real as night and day. But hypnosis can help you to unravel this.
Well, and maybe just kind of explain, give us maybe a couple of examples of, anonymized, obviously, but maybe of some things that your clients have come to you for. Because like you said, I mean, people out there listening, we all have these anxieties and fears that come up, and they're real to us, right? Like you said, and we can either choose to keep feeling anxious and fearful, which is not very fun in my book, right? I'd rather get rid of those things as quick as possible. But what are kind of some examples? Because again, as people are listening to this, they might be going, well, I don't know, is the thing that I'm dealing with, is that something that hypnosis could help me with? So what are kind of some common things that people come to you to get help with?
So hypnosis can help with a variety of problems. I've had a lady that came to me for a migraine. I've had people coming from confidence, sabotage issues, fears, all sorts of things. And age, again, it makes no difference, because some people's like, oh, I'm old, all dogs, new tricks. That doesn't go together. And it's not true, because one of my recent clients, a lady, was past a certain age, and she came to me because she struggled with confidence. So she's lost her husband about a year ago, no friends, she had this social anxiety. She really felt uncomfortable going out to meet people, to strike a conversation. And she's like, well, I don't really want to, get married again. That was, I think, her third husband. But I want to find a friend. I want to get some people in my life, because I don't want to spend the last few years or however, much she's got left on my own. So, okay, so we started to work together. And what it came down to it, when she was a little girl, her father never believed her. He always questioned her. So if she said something, she's like, okay, prove it to me. She never was believed on her face value. She was like, okay, thank you, honey, that's good. She always felt like what she's got to say is not good enough. She started to doubt herself that what she's got to say is actually not valid, because her dad never believed her and always asked her to prove it to her. So she felt very uncomfortable in her own skin. She didn't trust herself. She always needed to ask for permission to do something. And because that started when she was a very little girl, at that age when we are so open and malleable, I think Jim says this, like we are a walking, talking camera with a microphone that absorbs everything. Then her family was bullying her, and she allowed that to happen because she was like, well, they must know better than I do, because I can't trust myself because my dad taught me this. He made me to believe that I am not to be trusted. And she got in a relationship with someone, again, recreated the relationship. Her husband was pretty much her dad, didn't treat her well, always questioned her. She never really had any friends in a relationship outside that marriage. And I think the last husband was the third husband that she had. But again, he was her whole world. She didn't trust herself. She's like, why would they want to speak to me? I have nothing to offer. I'm no one, I'm nothing, I'm not interesting. I have nothing to say. My opinion don't matter. That was her reality. That's what she believed about herself, but that made her feel very uncomfortable and miserable in her own skin. So when we started to work together and we unraveled that that's where the belief came from, the social anxiety, the inability to see that she is enough and worthy and interesting, came from the fact that her dad was questioning her from day one. And now, oh my God, she's a social butterfly.
I was going to say, now she's out all over the town.
Amazing. Right? And to be honest, she wanted this change so much that she did everything that I asked her to do. She was going out to people. She was pushing herself past the comfort zone, which something is Jim tells us all the time. If you're not going to get out of your comfort zone, you never will. She was going out to social events, approaching people, as much as that was making her feel uncomfortable, because mind prefers what's familiar. And that was a very unfamiliar concept to her. So even when we unraveled the belief, okay, the belief came from this, and we worked on this, she still needed to do the work on a conscious level, push her past the comfort zone to prove to the mind there is nothing to be scared of. And she did. And I'm not kidding. Such a social butterfly. And she's such an interesting person, so much to say, yet she didn't see that.
Yeah, well, that's why even as you were describing her, I'm thinking, okay, here's a lady that had 3 different marriages. Later on in life, she's got to have some great stories. Of course, she's got things that people would want to hear. But I think thank you for kind of sharing that, because I think it hopefully helps unpack this for a lot of the people that have been listening and kind of understand. And as you were talking, because I know I'm this way, most people are this way. We want to fix our own problems, right? It's like, I'm a big boy. I can figure this out. But I think, that example that you just shared, she wanted to figure it out, but she couldn't figure it out because so much of the time we can't consciously figure it out because it relates often to some experience we had that we don't even remember.
Yep.
Or it relates to some experience that we would think has absolutely nothing to do with the challenge that we're dealing with. And that's really where, somebody as a hypnotherapist can come in and actually help to unpack that, because like you said, you were able to help unpack, figure out what it is. I'm sure through some of the sessions, reprogram some of that, but then also encourage her to consciously actually do some stuff too, right? You can't just reprogram subconsciously and then just keep doing the same things.
Oh no, because that's, you're going opposite directions then. You still need to do the conscious work. And like you said, if you're trying to figure this on your own, quite often the ego is going to get in a way. And the ego is like, don't go there. You don't need to go there. You're fine where you are. If despite the fact that you feel very uncomfortable, and she did very uncomfortable, and she couldn't figure this out by herself. That's why she came to me. And as you reprogram your subconscious patterns, you also need to do the conscious work, which for her was going out to social events, get to know people, approach them. And it was slow and, one step at a time. She didn't go to a massive event from day one. It was It was a small gathering with just a few people. Next time was a bigger one. Next time was a different one. So every time she was pushing us a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And eventually she was like, what was I afraid of?
Well, I think that's the realization, and that's the aha that we can come to once we actually go through do the work, right? Because again, like you said, but the fear and anxiety that we're feeling is real to us.
Oh, yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
But until we push through it and do the work that we need to do, we come on the other side, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, what was I so afraid of?
Exactly. And anxiety is not exactly the problem. This is just a coping mechanism, because the problem wasn't the fact that she was anxious. The problem was that she didn't trust herself. She didn't see herself as someone who's worthy to be seen by other people and having any connections, because she's like, well, who am I? I have nothing to say.
Yeah. And that phrase that you just said, so many of the people that are listening probably are telling themselves that too, right? Who am I? What do I have to share? Because we don't really feel as confident as we want to, or that we need to. We don't love ourselves as much as we should. We talked a little bit about that earlier too, right? And again, it's all because of kind of the programming and the experiences and things that we've lived through in our life. And the problem is, most of the time, we don't consciously know what's holding us back.
Exactly. And then we repeat that story to ourselves over and over, making it more real to us than actually is.
Yeah.
So it's just one of the stories. I've got so many stories, and it's just absolutely fills my soul with joy when I am able to help people to get past it, because I've been in a similar problems. I felt stuck in my patterns, and I was like, okay, there's something that I need to change here, but what is it that I need to change?
Well, and it sounds like, again, because you were able to get unstuck in your patterns, that's one of the reasons why now you are helping people do the same thing through hypnotherapy, to be able to help them as a tool.
Oh, absolutely. And I love it. And feels, and to be honest, I always, I was someone who always been very passionate at helping people from a very young age, because I was always against social conditioning, which is that programming. I remember I've always been against certain ways I was expected to be and to live growing up when I did. And I was like, no, why? I didn't sign up for that. And that's probably why I love hypnotherapy so much, because I was kind of fighting that programming from very early age, not really realizing what I'm really doing, because I didn't know any of this. Well, I guess my higher self did.
Yeah. But consciously, you just didn't realize it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, any final things to maybe leave? I know we talked about a lot of good stuff today, and things that I always say, usually at the beginning of each podcast, sometimes we kind of weave all the way around, but there's something in every episode that somebody needs to hear. And I'm sure that was the case today too, because of where we went, the things that we talked about, and a lot of the things that you hear people talking about, I hear people talking about, that's a way to help them. So any kind of final thoughts to kind of wrap up, because everybody's got to get going. We got to get going too, but I'd stay here and talk to you all day if I could.
Well, no, I love those conversations. I think if you are on a fence and you are someone like, well, I'm not really sure about this part of my life, and I really don't know what to do about it, go and reach out for help. It doesn't have to be me. There's plenty of hypnotherapists. Obviously, I do want to see you, but
Yeah.
I may not be your jam, but if you feel like there's something in your life that you really want to change, and you've been trying and it's not really getting anywhere, go and reach out for help. Find a hypnotherapist that you resonate with and see what they can do for you. Because I promise you, if you find a good hypnotherapist, it's going to change your life forever.
Yeah. Well, I've seen that in my life. You've seen it in your life. like I said, I know lots of other hypnotherapists. I've heard stories after stories after stories. It's just, again, and what's the worst thing that can happen? Right.
Exactly.
This is what I always like to tell people is, just try it. If you don't like it, you never have to do it again.
Mhm.
But if what you're doing isn't working, why not try something new and just see if it might work for you? Because that was kind of your story too,
Mhm.
that you were looking for all of these different things, but none of those seemed to resonate with you, but hypnotherapy did. And
Mhm.
that's kind of why you came to that point.
Yeah, it's like, and you keep trying, because I kept trying various things. I was like, okay, this is not really working for me. And that's better, but not really. And I kept trying till I was like, okay, this is working for me. I love it. So yeah, and even with a hypnotherapist, find one that resonate
Yeah.
with you on an energetic level, and go for your gut feeling. Don't go for your head. That one is gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Go
your
with your
brain-
gut feeling. Go with your heart. How this person makes you feel.
Yeah.
And if it feels good, go for it.
Good stuff. So thank you for coming on and talking to me today. I love doing this. And if people have been listening, if this is resonating with them and they're like, man, that Ewelina, she's amazing, which I already know, right? That you are amazing.
Oh, thank you very much.
How's the best way for people to reach out if they want to get a hold of you? How's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So my business is called Braving the Being. So be www, bravingthebeing.com. You can find me on Instagram as well, which probably is going to be hard because it's my full name.
Yeah, type out the whole thing. Okay, but we'll
But
make sure that
probably
people will
is,
be able to see it.
yeah, but probably is the easiest way to email me, which is my name, but with a V, at bravingthebeing.com. Or you can find me by Instagram, which is my name, which is not easy to find.
All right, perfect. Well, again, thank you, Ewelina. It was nice to get to know you a little bit better as well, and keep doing what you're doing. People are out there. People need help, and you're one of those good people. It's helping other people. So,
Oh, thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
thank you.